Ransdell, NANPA's Membership Director and your host for today's webinar. Before we get started with Roy's presentation, I wanted to share a little bit about what's happening in NANPA. We just added a regional event for Bosque del Apache in early December. Information about that event is on the NANPA website, where you will also find information on 4 other regional events we've planned for 2020. If you're interested in conservation photography, consider applying for NANPA Foundation's Philip Hyde Conservation Grant, which is a $2,500 award for a conservation project that's already in process. You might also be interested in NANPA's Conservation Photography Handbook if you haven't already seen it, which can be downloaded in the members area of the NANPA website. NANPA is planning its second Nature Photography Celebration in Asheville, North Carolina, April 19th through the 21st. Again, more details can be found on our website, and additional information will be sent out to the membership soon. Now let's get ready for today's webinar. We will prepare a couple of clips from the webinar today to share with NANPA members at a later date. We do encourage you to ask questions during the presentation. To do that, type your question in the chat box on the GoToWebinar control panel, and we will get those questions to Roy for answering. Now on to our presentation. Our speaker today is Roie Galitz. Roy is an award-winning wildlife photographer whose greatest life passions, nature and photography, take him from the Arctic to the Antarctic. For more than a decade, Roy has been exploring and documenting our planet's wildlife. His photographs get great exposure worldwide through the media, exclusive magazines, and local and international exhibitions. The list of awards he has received is impressive, and he is honored to serve as a Greenpeace ambassador. Roy's work and lifelong mission to raise awareness to pressing environmental issues takes him to some of the most remote places in the world to capture rarely viewed animals in their natural habitats, which I'm sure we will see photos of tonight. Roy, I'll turn the webinar over to you and look forward to hearing about your photography experiences.
Okay, thank you very much. Thank you so much, Teresa. Thank you, NANPA, and thank you for all the members watching right now. I'm excited you can join me. I know it's workday week. So today I'm going to share with you my point of view on photography. As a wildlife photographer, I've been experiencing many places around the world, and I'm sure you have as well. And in all of these journeys, in all of these expeditions and projects, I came across incredible wildlife. Some of it is impressive and healthy, and some of it is, I mean, you see the changes going on. Just seeing it with your own eyes makes a huge difference. So in all of these years, I started doing a lot of more photography for conservation to raise awareness for those animals. And indeed, as Teresa has mentioned, I joined Greenpeace, and I was honored to become a Greenpeace ambassador and help spread the word. Like, I mean, we all are wildlife photographers or nature photographers. So we all are a part of being ambassadors for nature. So I'm proud of you. I'm glad you're doing this together. We're doing it together for our own planet. So thank you so much. And today I'm going to share with you some of my approach. I know we have people listening and watching who are beginners, and some are very advanced. So I'm going to talk in general, and I'm trying to address each and every level of photography. Of course, if I'm saying something that is unclear or you have any questions about what I'm saying, don't hesitate to ask, and I'll be happy to answer. Some of the questions I'll answer along the way. Some of the questions I'll answer at the end of this presentation. But since we have so much to go through, I'm going to start making some progress with our presentation. So as wildlife photography can be quite exciting, sometimes it can also be quite dangerous. I mean, this is one of those cases. When I was photographing in 2015 in Svalbard in the high Arctic, and this family of polar bears, mother and 2 cubs, were walking towards me. I was so fascinated by these giants of nature that I hadn't really considered that a family of the world's largest land predators was walking towards me and were now just a few meters away. So we quickly hopped on our snowmobiles and drove away, leaving our precious gear behind. Actually, when the cubs and mother approached the gear, the cubs started playing around with the tripods and just rolling around them. It was so amazing, but unfortunately, I didn't have my camera to document it. So it was a nice memory to remember for until this day. So I'm a wildlife photographer. We all are. What is a wildlife photographer? Well, it's two things. First, it's an outdoors person. And the second part is being a photographer. So as an outdoors person, we gotta go out there. We gotta spend as much time out there as possible. And the more you spend, the more you receive, because you get more experiences and more sunrises and sunsets, and then you can get more and more interesting images. You get more behaviors. You get more chances. And being a photographer, I mean, wildlife photography is about accurate photography. The technique must be perfect. So in photographing wildlife, you have to carry big lenses, but you can also carry small lenses. You can even get amazing photos like the one that won the Wildlife Photographer of the Year last year with the GoPro. I mean, it can be with any camera. So there is the usual syndrome called GUS. I'm sure you have heard of it. It's called the gear upgrade syndrome that every nature photographer has. Gear upgrade syndrome means that whenever a photo is not good enough, we don't blame it on ourselves, but we blame it on our gear. So we think that if we buy a better lens, a new camera, our photos will be better. But the fact is, it doesn't matter. You can shoot excellent photos with Canon or with Nikon or with Sony or whatever gear you're using. You can even use a compact camera to get some incredible shots. Your smartphones, I mean, they can get excellent shots as well. Drones are a new approach to photography. But at the end of the day, the most important gear is not your GoPro or your camera, it's the photographer itself. By the way, this is Lavi, my third son out of 4. So in every kid of mine, I'm taking a photo with him and their bigger sister. So we all know who came first. So the most important thing about the gear is not the gear, it's the photographer. So if you want to improve something, you don't have to run out and get a new lens or a new camera or a new whatever. Invest in yourself. Become yourself a better photographer. Because if you take even the best camera in the world and put it in the hands of a bad photographer, the photos will still be bad. So make a better photographer out of yourself. That's my point. So what makes a great wildlife photo? Today I'm going to talk to you about 2 parts. The first is the photography, and the second is the wildlife. In the photography, I'm going to go through composition, technique, and light. I know that some of you are advanced, some of you are newbies. I'm going to address it anyway in the common sense. So when I'm talking about composition, composition means the structure of the frame. So if you have a good structure, you get an interesting photo, and that's what composition is all about. Composition can be the leading of the eye, the framing, the dividing of the frame, and so on. In this case, I used a natural frame of the tree branch to go around the leopard, and you have the good guidance of the eye going from the leg of the leopard to its eyes, to her eyes actually. Another example of composition is this lioness climbing down a kopje. Now, this is a more of a minimalistic approach. So you got the warm, soft lioness climbing off the cold, hard, volcanic rock in the Serengeti. So that's another ratio of power relationship between the rock and the lioness. My favorite bird in the world is the puffin. I'm sure most of you know about the puffin, but I like the puffin because it looks like a sad clown. So in this case, this is how I photograph. First, it's a sad clown, so it's about to commit suicide. But second thing is, if you look at the composition, your eyes are drawn to the puffin because the puffin is bright, sharp, and colorful, unlike the background, which is blurry, monochromatic, okay, and darker than the puffin itself. So you are using these tools to draw the viewer's eyes to your subject, and this is what I've done here. Another example, with the same puffin. The puffin is swimming with another frame. So I'm showing the puffin in its natural habitat, swimming among the ice. So this is a hole in an iceberg that was floating around, and I captured the puffin inside it. Another example is this hummingbird flying, and I used the branch as a frame for the hummingbird. On the lower right third, you can see the flowers. So that's the relationship between the hummingbird and the flowers. Another composition which creates a story. So here the story is the relationship between the lioness and the lion. I divided the frame into thirds. On the upper right third, you can see the lioness. And then the left 2/3, you see the lion going up towards her, creating a diagonal line. This creates a ratio of power. So you see the female is superior to the male is interested in the female is not so interested in the male. So that is kind of the way I'm creating the story with the composition. Another type of lions is the hooker sea lion in New Zealand. So here you have the female, male, and the cub, the pup. So the pup is standing with his chest blown out like his dad, showing off, and he's looking upwards. And the line you see between the mother and the father, between the male and the female, is the leading eye of the frame. So the lines lead to the climax of the frame, which is the relationship between the male and the female. Sometimes I like to shoot abstracts, but when shooting abstracts, you always need to make sure you have a solid base for the frame. You need an anchor whenever shooting an abstract. You need an anchor for the viewer's eyes to see it on, and then they have a stable base that they can rely on. And then from that base, they can go around, wander around. So here, the base of the frame is the younger penguins. You can see the ones in the bottom, they're brown. And over the top, you have all the adults. This is contradicting composition. So you have two objects which are looking the opposite way. So you kind of think that they're not talking to each other or whatever. It's the same story. Another composition creating a story. Here you have the male on the right, two females on the left. The male is walking out of the frame, and the two females are looking at him. So the story that you create here is kind of he's walking, and both of the females are talking about him. Sometimes most of my image is blurry, like this one. So you can see that actually over half of the image is out of focus. But that negative space emphasizes my subject, which is this female leopard climbing down a tree, she is located on the left third of the frame with the backlight. We're going to talk about that soon. I also love triangles. Triangles are a very strong shape. In this case, you have a triangle shape with the mother cheetah and her 4 grown-up cubs enjoying the rain on the Serengeti. Actually, they're having a licking party, which basically they're just drinking off each other. Another triangle, you can see here Ma'a. Ma'a, she's a spirit bear, and she's walking between the rocks, and this is also creating a nice triangle. Another composition, a little bit more complex one. So here I have an elephant on the lower right third of the frame. I've got the upper third of the frame. The canopy of the tree is the upper third of the frame. Here I have this other tree on the lower left third of the frame, which helps me understand what this tree looks like when it's not cut off as the way I did. Plus I got this nice S-curve, which is the elephant throwing sand on itself, and that also adds to my composition. Another example of an S-curve is this one, the dunes in Susosvlei. So you got this S line. S-lines are very sought after in composition. So this is one of the reasons why I included that, because it's very interesting and very nice leading of the eye. And at the bottom, I have a tree, and an oryx, because you've got to have an oryx in Namibia. So we talked about composition. Let's move forward to technique. When I'm talking about technique, I'm talking about light metering, and I'm talking about focusing and using your shutter, aperture, ISO, all the camera's parameters. So in this case over here, I spot metered the exposure a little bit left of the sun to get the giraffe as a silhouette. Another case was when I was photographing in the savannah of Serengeti. I saw a group of vultures flying, circling, and going down. When vultures are landing, it means there is something interesting on the ground, like a carcass. So we drove over there, we got close, and indeed we found the carcass of an impala. I told my local driver guide, we should go back. His name is Dale. We should go back 10 meters away, 30 feet for the Americans, and locate ourselves with the wind from us towards the animal, towards the carcass. That has two advantages. The first advantage is that you don't smell the carcass, which is important. But the second and more interesting reason is that vultures must land against the wind, so they'll have enough lift. So then all I had to do is focus my camera on continuous focus, wait for the vultures to come in and land, and then all I have to do, all that's left is to just click, and the vulture landed. Another one is coming, click, it landed, and so on and so on. At the end, I only had to choose the best image I like, which is this one, my favorite one from that sequence. And you can see the way the vulture is landing. So it's all about preparation, understanding nature, predicting how it's going to behave, and then setting your parameters, in this case, the autofocus and the aperture, to capture the vulture as it's landing. Another bird, which is, again, my personal favorite, is a puffin, but puffins don't really fly, they mostly crouch. So they fly really erratically. So it's really hard, it's really difficult to photograph them and catch them in mid-air flying while they're just diving down to catch fish. So you can shoot a lot more images. And don't worry if some of the images are cut off, out of focus, blurry, or so on, as long as you've got at least one or two images that are worthy of publishing. So don't worry, just when in doubt, shoot more. Another kind of puffin, this is the tufted puffin from Kamchatka in eastern Siberia. Sometimes I use a slower shutter speed to get a little bit of motion blur, like in this case with the northern fulmar in Svalbard. So the slow shutter speed shows the motion. Another case, or another example of slow shutter speed showing the motion, is when I was photographing a brown bear in Kamchatka. He was shaking his head, and thanks to the slow shutter speed, you can see the motion of the head, and you can actually see also the pivot point, which is right here when the bear was shaking. So this adds interest to the image. Another example is the spirit bear, Ma'a, walking on the rocks, and the slow shutter speed gets me that water flow, nice and silky, and not just frozen water. When I want to freeze the frame, like in this case, when I was photographing this Adelie penguin in Antarctica, I use higher shutter speeds, and then you can freeze frame, freeze action, freeze high speed action, and just show that one instance, that one slice of moment forever, which is also pretty cool. So our basis for photography, our infrastructure for photography is light. I mean, the word photography itself, photo is light, and graphic means writing. So photography is writing light. So we just record light reflecting off objects into our camera, and with our CCD, we create that image. So when the light is interesting, the photo will be interesting. In this case, you can see the waterback I was photographing in Tanzania. So the light was illuminating the waterback from the left, and thanks to a tree casting a shadow on the bush behind the waterback, I got this really nice dark background thanks to the high contrast between the well-lit waterback and the dark background behind it. So I like interesting light. When the light is interesting, the photo is interesting. For example, here, you can see this female polar bear. And look over here, you see that the light creates those layers on the polar bear. So when you have a little bit of a backlight, you get these layers. So this adds depth. This creates like a 3D image of our subject. But in order to get a proper exposure, you need to have a dark background. For example, here, you see the female with her two cubs. You see that when you have a dark background, we get those layers nicely visible. When we have a bright background, like here with the sun reflecting off the ice, you got a light background, then you don't see those layers as well as you can with the darker background behind. Another example, when the sun is totally back, then you get these nice contour lines, like here with this male polar bear in Svalbard. And I really love this kind of light, these contour lines. It just looks stunning. And actually, this image was a cover of a magazine article that was issued on October 1st on PET Explorers. This is even more strong example of this harsh light, which creates a nice contour. I convert this photo into black and white and actually increase the contrast in order to show the contour in a better way, and also to show the polar bear's breath from here. Another example is this baby cheetah running at sunrise, or this family of cheetah, mother and 4 young cubs enjoying their sunset in the Serengeti. This is another example in Kamchatka. You see the sun just came out of the clouds, illuminating the bears like a projector. So I just had to catch that. I just had to show that wonderful light. Like I have a strobe from the sky illuminating the bears. In Hokkaido, in northern Japan, we had this amazing sunset. So sunsets, sunrises are when the times of the day when the light is the most interesting. I usually don't shoot at noon, or I try not to shoot at noon, but I try to work in the best light possible and then use it in my advantage. In this case, the sun was glowing through the whopper swan's wings, which makes them shine. When the sun is in the frame, the contrast is too high. So you can't get those images like I showed you before, but in this case, you can choose either getting the silhouette or getting the sun blown out. So, of course, we do silhouettes. So when shooting silhouettes, you always need to make sure you have a good line, a good contour line of the animal. Like here, when you see this giraffe in sunrise. Or here, when you see a pack of hyenas, in the sun is just over here, and then you get them in silhouette while they're eating a gnu. We have another gnu wildebeest in the back and a vulture flying in the sky. And this is one of the most amazing sunsets I've ever seen. I mean, it was in Antarctica, and as the sun was setting, it was 11:30 p.m., a cloud casted a shadow over this huge iceberg, while the mountains in the back were illuminated by the sun. So I just ran inside the boat, I grabbed my 500mm lens and just snapped this photo. It was just one moment when the right conditions occurred, when the cloud casted the shadow of the glacier. And over here, if you can see at home, you have these little pixels over here. These are actually penguins. Okay, these are Adelie penguins, just getting ready for a night's sleep on the iceberg. And that gives you scale of just how big this massive iceberg is. So this thing can float around for years. And as we say, this is just the tip of the iceberg. So we talked about the photography part. We talked about composition, we talked about technique, and we talked about light. Now let's talk about the wildlife, which is more interesting if you ask me. And we have a lot to go through, so sorry, I'm gonna go fast. If you have any questions, of course, I remind you, you can write in the app or on the website, and we have Teresa sending them to me over text, so I know what to answer. Okay, so we're talking about wildlife. When we talk about wildlife, we're going to talk about portrait, environmental portrait, behavior, and emotion. So portrait. A portrait is a photo showing not just an animal or a face or human, but a portrait is a photo showing the character and the personality of your subject. Okay, and we always say that the window to the soul is the eyes. So when I was in Costa Rica, I photographed this tiny tree frog called the red-eyed tree frog. And that's a really tiny frog. I mean, it's only 2 inches, 2.5 inches big. So whenever I approached the little frog with my camera, with my Nikon 105mm lens, whenever I got closer, the little frog just popped on the front of my lens, blocking the view. And of course, I can't take any photos with it. So I just had to gently return it back and then take a photo again until I finally managed to get the photo in focus without the frog moving. And this is what I got. And this shows a portrait of a red-eyed tree frog. So you can really see the character. I mean, it's just the frog on a flower. It's a red-eyed tree frog posing with her eyes just amazingly shown, as you can see here. Another example is the yellow-eyed penguin. Sorry, I skipped that photo for you. Is the walrus. So the walrus, I mean, it's huge. It weighs 1.5 tons, up to 1.5 tons. And this walrus is a walrus I photographed in Svalbard. And you can see the character of the walrus, the personality. The walrus is big. He doesn't care about anything. He just sits there on the beach. He has these holes in his stomach, just showing how fat he is and how big his suit is. And actually, I'm also paraphrasing between the walrus and the tree log over here. It's driftwood. And I'm just saying, so the walrus is in the left third, the tree log is in the right third. And I'm saying that these are basically the same. They're here and they're here to stay, and no one's going to move them. So that's kind of the portrait that I'm showing here about the walrus. When I was in Costa Rica, I saw these the sea turtles hatching from their eggs. So I laid on the ground and I photographed this baby turtle. He's 10 seconds old, so a little bit in shock. But in return, I made sure that he reached the ocean, the Caribbean Sea, and it was pretty cool to photograph them hatching. And this is a caiman. There is a famous saying by Ansel Adams, one of the world's most famous photographers. He said that in each image, there are 2 people, the viewer and the photographer. So whenever I'm taking photos, I hope you can see it onwards in the talk, I'm always making sure that I'm there too. They're not physically, you can't see me, but you can see how I felt when I took this image. So when I took this image, I felt dark, mysterious, maybe even kind of evil. So when I took this image, I took it intentionally, underexposed. So it's underexposed by over an f-stop. I focused only on the eye, nothing else besides it, and its reflection. So this is how I convey myself in the image. So that's how I felt here. How did I feel in this image? Yeah, so I felt very emotionally attached. I mean, I just looked at this little Arctic fox pup, and I just went, oh, this is so adorable. And that's how I felt like. And that's the way I took it. So it's bright, it's soft, it's lovey-dovey, you know, as they say. So I just felt emotionally attached, and I feel emotionally attached to each and every one of my photos. This little guy, this cute baby leopard, he's wet because he was walking in the high grass with the morning dew in the savannah, and he looks a little bit sad, and so that's how I felt for him. Or this little guy, baby lion. So these are all portraits, and this is a portrait of this guy's dad. That's his father. And you can see this is the lion, king of the jungle, and that's his true character, and this is the way I photographed him. So he's massive. Japanese snow monkey. You can see, you can hear it thinking. I mean, again, that's a portrait. Or this guy, or this family portrait, just hugging and getting warm together in the cold Japanese Alps in the wintertime in February. Or this mother with her young baby, both sleeping. Or this thinker over here. And one of the funniest animals for me is the sloth. I mean, look at this guy, look at his portrait. For me, sloths are chill. So I can look at this guy and can think about him. He's like, if I'm dubbing him, he's like, what up, man? Don't worry about it. Everything's cool. Relax, chill. We have plenty of time. So that's how I feel about the sloth, and this is how I show him to the viewer. So you can see the sloth, his eyes are shut, he has a dreamy smile. You can see the on his fur, it has algae growing on its fur, and he has also moths living in its fur. So it's like a whole ecosystem on one animal in Costa Rica. And this guy, this is the impala, and here I'm kind of joking about him. So I would say that the impala is the fast food of the savannah. And how do you know it's the fast food of the savannah? Because when you look at here, you can see the McDonald's sign on its rear. So that's what I wanted to show here on this photo. And of course, I didn't mention it, but as you can see, in each and every photo, the same rules apply about composition, technique, light, and so on and so on. So I'm just adding and not subsidizing instead of what I said before. So this is about portraits. Then I want to talk about environmental portraits. Environmental portraits are portraits of me showing the animal in its natural habitat. So here we have the elephant, the African elephant, which is the largest living land mammal on Earth, but it's still a dot in the plains of the Serengeti. And you can see that he is alone in the entire bottom part of the frame. But in the sky, we have a lot of elephants, a lot of clouds, of course. So that's like a contradicting composition. Another example is the king penguins in South Georgia, showing them in their environment. Or here, the king of the Arctic, the polar bear, in its surrounding. And the next image actually is one of my favorite. It's I called it Dreaming of Sea Ice, and it actually won many international awards. And also it's part of the symbols of conservation, showing the polar bear and its relationship with this sea ice. So the polar bear loves sea ice. And you can see that here. And actually has also two bodyguards. One here, this seagull over here, and the other one flying over here, the modern former. So you see it in its surrounding beautifully. Actually, what I wanted to add here also is when an animal falls asleep in front of you, that's the biggest compliment you can get as a wildlife photographer, because that means that this animal trusts you with its eyes shut, literally. Okay, we are most vulnerable when we are asleep. So when an animal, a polar bear or whatever, sleeps in front of you, don't be insulted. It's not that you're boring. It's a compliment. It trusts you. So be happy about it and be thankful. Everywhere I go, I don't sleep in a 5-star hotel. I sleep in a 1-million-star hotel like here. So this is my tent, and that's the Milky Way. And if you haven't seen the Milky Way in the past year, I urge you to go out and look for it, because the Milky Way is always amazing. Behavior. So we talked about portrait, environmental portrait. Now let's talk about behavior. Behavior is the holy grail of wildlife photography because we are all looking for interesting behaviors. The magazines, the judges in competition, everyone online, everyone's looking for behavior, behavior, behavior. So with your behavior, you're creating a story. And I don't care if your story is that these two guys are crying or whining or yawning or roaring. It doesn't matter as long as you create a story in your mind as a viewer. By the way, these guys are yawning, of course. I love to photograph animals with their food. Here you can see this baby lion playing around with the spring hare. So this spring hare over here is already deceased, as they say, but it was just so adorable seeing this baby lion play around, toss it around like a rag doll. Here you can see a leopard, female leopard, eating a baby gnu on the tree. Again, look at the composition. Mother Gentoo penguin feeding her chick in Antarctic blizzard in January. This image was also a winner and was presented in the Smithsonian in DC. Or this guy enjoying his food. So that's a brown bear with a sockeye salmon in Kamchatka. Well, we're talking about anecdotes. This image was on the cover of Nikon Pro magazine. So yeah. So whenever you see an animal with its food, it's always interesting because food is a big part of life. I mean, you can't live without food. So that's why I'm also trying to get images with food. Another unique behavior, that's a polar bear with a barnacle goose chick in its mouth. Actually, the chick is still alive here, but not for long. And this is one of the craziest scenes I've ever seen. So this is a baby, a young lion with an elephant. So I'll explain more about that image further on. And this is another image that I published about the same baby lion, same young lion with the elephant. I've got a question here. What are your best tips for creating impactful wildlife conservation images? That's a very good question. As I've mentioned, we are all ambassadors of nature. We are all part of nature. We all go out and photograph it and share those images with people who, let's face it, generally don't go out to nature outdoors as much as we do. So we are all ambassadors by the very essence of taking photos of nature and sharing. So that's the first thing to create impact. If you want to create a bigger impact, you need to look at the story and not just the image. So I know it's not about photography, but it's still a part of what we do. So when you post a photo or conservation photo, write a story behind it. What are we seeing? Why is it important? What can we do to help protect it? So go out, photograph, share, and tell the story. So that's my key approach. My approach is, while we're talking about portraits and environmental portraits and behavior, is I'm mostly what I'm doing, I'm humanizing the animals. So I try to show the animals in a human-like perspective. Okay, so they're yawning and they're playing and they're lovey-dovey and they have a soul, and we look at their eyes and we make the connection. And when I see the connection being made, when people look at animals not as inferior creatures, but they look at animals as something majestic, as something with a soul, as something with character, with personality, that's when people start to care. So I urge you to try to do the same. Try to show the animals in a human-like way, not just as animals. So that's what I'm doing. Look at this guy. Okay, that's the brown bear in Kamchatka. And you look at this guy, and you can see the determination, the motivation. I mean, this guy is really into it. You can see that it's broad shoulders with the muscles, and you can feel its energy. So when you look at this image, and by the way, this was also a cover of Wildlife Photographic magazine. But when you look at this image, you see not just a bear, you see a human bear. You see something that's not just an animal, it's more. The animal, what I'm saying is, animals are us are the same. That's what I'm saying. We are animals. Okay, we are part of nature. We are not above nature. We are part of it. And I want to show that nature is a part of us as well. So that's what I think I answered more than I wanted. Yeah, so that's a behavior. Mountain gorilla eating a salad. I mean, we all work like that when we eat salads. Salads, yeah. This guy, is it Monday already? I mean, a lemur in shock. I mean, it's adorable. I mean, people love lemurs since Madagascar movie. Or this guy enjoying his food. I mean, this is a ground squirrel in Kamchatka. This is a behind the scenes. So here I'm guiding a lot. All of these photos were taken while I'm guiding photography workshops. So I'm guiding photography workshops all over the world. All of the images were taken during photography workshops. And here you can see that's me. And here in the pond, we have Africa's most dangerous mammal, which is, of course, the hippo. So key advice when photographing dangerous animals, always make sure there is someone in front of you. No, but I'm just kidding, of course. But thanks to being so low, and thanks to being patient, and thanks to being close to the action, then you get images like that. Of course, always you need to keep your safety in mind first. We also did that, of course, so it's not dangerous what we did here, but it's safe, and then you get images like that. I love photographing cubs. Okay, they remind me of my own kids. I've got 4, as I mentioned. So my boys look like that. They fight all the time. So this guy, you see the right one is blessing the left one, and they're playing. So that's what it looks like in the savannah of the Serengeti. And this is what it looks like in the high Arctic with Arctic fox pups, which are also adorable. They run around playing tag or catch. Bears, brown bears in Kamchatka. Again, look at the composition, look at the angle. I'm trying to shoot from a low angle with a clear background. We talked about composition a lot. Or this one, again, symmetry is something that I really love in photography. And of course, behavior, interaction, showing them in a human way. People think they're kissing. Of course, they're not kissing. It's play fight. This is courtship. You see here the jackals are, the male is seducing the female with an agama lizard. It worked. They did it 15 times. Lions mating in the savannah. So this is also an environmental portrait because it's wide and you have the entire savannah with the sky and everything around it. But you also have the lions in their action shot with their mating. And this is how it looks like in Antarctica, in South Georgia, when you have the king penguins. You got the male on top, female on the bottom. Over here, you got the wedding bed. And over here, you got the curious cousin, as always. I don't know if that works for you. But this is, again, penguins in South Georgia. Another action shot. Here you can see the cheetah. She's fighting with a hyena. And the hyena tried to attack her cubs. So this is really rare. Usually hyenas, I mean, they can kill a cheetah. So cheetahs don't mess with them. In this case, the female, the mother, knew that her cubs' lives were in danger, so she gave it everything she had and just attacked the hyena. A few seconds after, the hyena remembered it's a hyena, turned around, attacked the cheetah, chased her away with her cubs, and it took the carcass of the gazelle and walked away. This is one of my better known shots. This one is called Run for Your Life. This shows the most intense moment of nature when life is between life and death. So you got the cheetah, mother, female, chasing the gazelle, again, another female. You got the 8 legs in the air. You look at the focused look of the cheetah and the, I mean, frightened look of the gazelle. I can understand why. But one more thing, look at over here, look at this rock. This rock is something very crucial in this image. It was kicked by the gazelle, almost hit the cheetah in the eyes, missed it by inches, flying over it until the cheetah just went under the rock. Now, last thing I'm going to talk about with the animals, talk about emotion. So emotion, talking about the emotion that the photo triggers with the viewer, not with the animal. So in this case, we're talking about first all moments, as I call them. So when you look at this baby cheetah kissing its mother on the forehead, that's really adorable. And you can see the a lioness mother with her 2-week-old cubs. She cleans them, and they are blind, and they can't move on their own. So, I mean, this is nurturing. I got a question. What was the f-stop on the photo with the cheetah and the gazelle? Actually, that photo was shot at f9 or 11. The shutter speed was 1/1250, and the ISO was around 640. The reason I closed the aperture is to get them both in focus and increase the chances of getting everything in focus. Because if you shoot at f4, you might miss. And when shooting this kind of action shot, you don't want to miss. You want to increase the chances. And again, it's kind of a risk gain kind of thing. So I had to close the aperture, raise the ISO in order to maintain the shutter speed and get that shot. I hope that answered the question. So emotions. Mother-cubs relationship is a big part of my photography, because I think first it's adorable and I relate to that. Second, it shows a very crucial part of nature, because without that nurture, there won't be a next generation. So here you have the brown bear mother and cub and the relationship. Mother Japanese macaque and her baby. And this is a more frightened look, not a nurturing look, but this is a frightening look, frightened. Here you have an adolescent, a teenager bear. He doesn't care about his mother, he just wants her food. So you can see him eyeballing the salmon in his mother's mouth. Baby brown bear in his playground. Look at the light, look at the composition and everything. Curiosity is a big part of what I like with cubs. They are really curious, as you can see here. Mountain gorilla with his human-like look into the lens of the camera. Of course, look at the framing and the light and everything. Humor is a big part of also my photography. It's a big part of the emotions that I want to trigger. Here you have a ground squirrel, hysterical ground squirrel. And here you have a hyena laughing his ass off. This little guy was imitating me photographing it. So I think that's the way I look like when I photograph, but yeah. This astronaut, actually this image is a finalist in the Comedy Wildlife Awards right now. It looks like an astronaut. Blonde fur seal pup. I mean, she modeled for me for half an hour and then she fell asleep. Maybe she was bored. Elephant seals are the most hysterical animal on earth. I mean, they look human and they always make the funniest faces. So the next photo, I called it the 3 tenors. So you can see the 3 tenors. I don't know which one is Pavarotti. I think the left one. But yeah, they're really small. They're really sweet. So we all try to find something unique to photograph. We can do uniqueness by behavior, like this vegetarian lion. Of course, it didn't last for long. Or another kind of behavior, like these surfing dolphins in New Zealand, in Curio Bay, Hector dolphins. Or can be behavior uniqueness from a composition point of view. Like I photographed these oaks flying with the sun reflecting off the water in the fjord behind them. That way it looks like they're flying among the stars. Reflections, like these polar bear reflecting off the sea ice. As wildlife photographers, we all need to have a lot of patience, because things never happen when we want them to happen. They happen when they need to happen. So most of the times I'm not taking photos. Okay, most of the times I'm like that. I'm waiting for the right moment. I'm scanning the area, looking at the bears. Sorry, just a sec. I'm looking at the bears and I'm trying to guess or predict which bear is going to do the next interesting thing. So that leads me to the decisive moment. The decisive moment is that instance, is that fraction of a second where everything comes together. So when we can predict it, it's easy. When we can't predict it, that's when we have to take a lot of photos, many images, click, 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 in order to later select the right photo that we want. So in this case, you saw the cheetah with the run for your life image. I didn't know when was the right action. So I just click, 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 and then I chose the right moments, the right frames I wanted out of that sequence. So I chose that image and this image and whatever I want. When I can predict, I know when to be ready. So one behavior leads to another. Let's say lions mating. Lions mating isn't that interesting. But what follows is, because every time after a mating, the female will try to attack the male. And then you get images like that. And that's interesting. That's an interesting behavior. So you know how to prepare, you know how to predict, and then you can take those images. And if you miss, don't worry. They'll do it again in 15 minutes. So no worries, sit back, relax. Another 15 minutes, you got a replay of the show and another chance to catch something like that. Another kind. So when an animal is doing something, something else is going to happen. If you see a bear walking downstream and doing with his head like that, you know there's going to be a fight. You get ready, you catch something like that. Another example is when an animal goes out of the water, what it's going to do, it's going to shake. It's going to shake the water off, and then you get images like that. When photographing a chase, like the one we saw with the cheetah, you never focus as the one being chased. You always focus at the chaser, the one doing the chasing. The reason is the one being chased, I don't know where it's going to go. It can go each and every way possible, but the chaser is going to go after the one being chased. So it's easier to focus on the chaser. In this case, where you see this olive baboon jumping between the branches in Tanzania, I saw this baby baboon jumping between the trees, the branches, going to this alpha male, just giving him a pound and running away, just like kids do. So I knew I can focus on this male. Just as I saw the little baby jumping from one branch to another, I knew that the big male will follow. And that's the way I caught this image. Some more examples. This crocodile charging at the Nile in Uganda, or this walrus preparing to dive in Svalbard, or this skua flying in South Georgia, attacking penguins. I call this image actually Arctic Angel. So that's an ivory gull flying off the ice. So now I'm going to show you some more decisive moments with the same animal. In this case, Arctic tern. So here you can see the Arctic tern entering the water, exiting the water, courtship, the result of the courtship, a chick, of course. And that's all different kind of behaviors, all kinds of different decisive moments with the same species of animal. So you can see that it works every time. That's a decisive moment. A glacier collapsing in Svalbard, and a dusky dolphin jumping out of the water in New Zealand, Kaikoura. So what I'm trying to do now is get closer and get lower. As Robert Capa said, if your picture's not good enough, means you're not close enough. So I'm listening to the greatest of all photographers, and I'm trying to get closer and lower. So sometimes it's easy, like with the penguins and with the pelican flying. This was taken with a 14mm lens. I got a question. Are most of your photos shot handheld? Well, I'd say, yeah, most of them are handheld, but in recent years, I'm doing more and more videography. So I'm doing a lot of videos. I've got a film in the BBC called Snow Bears. I'm one of 4 photographers who worked on that film, narrated by the magnificent Kate Winslet. It was premiered in Christmas on BBC and on PBS Nature a year after that. So last Christmas it was on PBS Nature. You can look it up. I'm one of 4 photographers. It's a great production, great script, great everything. So I'm doing a lot of video as well. I've got also films on Japanese network and Brazilian network. But video is a big part of photography. I also urge you to do that. If I have time, I'll talk more about videography. So since I'm doing a lot of videos as well, my camera is already on a tripod for video. Of course, you can't do video, of course, for mostly wildlife photography, handheld. So I'm my camera is on a tripod. So if it's on a tripod, I'm going to leave it on a tripod and just switch between video and stills. But if I'm not shooting video, I'll mostly use handheld. Especially I like to shoot handheld with the new 500mm f5.6 PF, the phase Fresnel, which is 500mm, but it weighs only 1.3 kilograms, which is 2.6 pounds, which is very easy to handhold. So I like the flexibility of handheld, but I sometimes use a tripod, as I've mentioned. Do you open up the composition in unpredictable scenes and crop up down later for composition? Yeah, so when I don't know what's going to happen, I definitely do open up the composition. If I have a zoom lens, another prime lens, I will open up the composition because I'm always, I mean, I know it for a fact, but it's always easier to crop than uncrop if you already cropped during the photo, because you can't add a wing of a pelican. I mean, you can, but it's unethical. And all of my images have to comply with the photojournalistic ethics, because in every competition, they want to see the raw files. Every article, they want to see the raw files. Today, in the age of fake news and fake photos, I mean, credibility for photography is the last thing we have. So let's keep it intact. So the only thing I can do is crop, but I can't uncrop or content aware something that was cropped in advance. So always, it's easier to crop than create something that wasn't photographed. So always remember that. But that's a good question. So again, getting close, getting low. In this case, you can see the mama bear standing, and I'm shooting from really low. I mean, I'm laying on the ground in order to get this photo. And here also, you can see this bear jumping at the salmon, and I'm at the water level. I mean, I'm lower than the bear is in order to get this photo. So behind the scenes, I'm going to show you some behind the scenes now. It looks like this, or even lower. And here actually, I'm holding the new Nikon 500mm 5.6 PF, the one that I mentioned before. The water is cold, thanks for asking. It's around 2 degrees centigrade, which I don't know, it's 35, 40 degrees Fahrenheit or whatever, which is cold. So I'm wearing waders, fisherman's pants up to here, and that keeps me dry unless I lean forward too much. So that keeps me dry in those conditions. So I have warm clothing underneath to stay warm for a long period of time in the water while taking photos without getting wet. Because if you get wet, you lose all your insulation and then you start freezing. And then your photos are blurry because you're shaking. So don't shake. Or this photo. This is actually one of my favorite ones. So this photo is taken from a very low angle. I was just holding my hands over the Zodiac with the screen on the D850 tilted up, so I can see what the camera is seeing in live view mode, and that's the way I got this image. I can't show you the behind the scenes, but it's yeah. Or this image when I got photographed walruses. So to get these walruses, I had to get lower, get closer, and get as close as I can to shoot it with a 24-70mm lens. And people always ask me, what is your favorite wildlife photography lens? My favorite wildlife photography lens is the 24-70 f2.8. So people are always surprised. That's not a big lens. Yeah, I'm not looking for the big lens. I'm looking to get close. I want to get close when I can. When I can't, I use other techniques, which I'll show you in a minute. So thanks to getting close and using a wide angle, that way I got to photograph this huge fjord behind the walruses. And again, this is also in a workshop that I guided. So this one as well, getting close, getting low, and then you get this terrific shot of a male walrus on the beach looking at its melting world. Okay, and again, I can't show you right now the behind the scenes, because it's online. People might look at it and think the wrong things about it. So here's with a brown bear, and with this brown bear, I just got closer. It's an alpha male, so you can't get too close. So I shot from this kind of distance. But then I started getting closer to the females, which is easier than the males, because the males can be very dangerous. And then I got this image. And this image is showing Kamchatka in one frame. So you've got this mother and cub, and you've got a volcano in the background, and the lenticular clouds at sunset, the lake in the back, and you even have a salmon breaching out of the water. Okay, so yeah, the salmon was lucky. Okay, the rest was planned. And the salmon was just like, continuous shooting, and I got that. So that's a nice surprise. So I wanted to get closer, but getting closer is dangerous. So when I told Sergey, my local inspector from the Russian Nature Reserve, I told him that I want to get closer. Sergey said, it will be a photo of a lifetime, the last photo you take. So I listened to Sergey. I didn't get closer, but I found another way to get closer, and that's using remote trigger camera. So that's my camera. I've got here the receiver. I have the transmitter in my hand, and I'm like 30 feet away from there. I set the composition straight. I got everything I wanted on the stage, and all I have to do now is wait for the main character, the bear, to arrive. The other cameras here of the people that I guided in the workshop. So this is the image. That's when the bear arrived. That's how I got it. But I wanted to get even closer. So in order to get closer, I placed my camera on the shores of the lake, because the bears always walk on the shore. So then I got the bear coming closer to the camera, and the image was this one. So you can't take photos like that while you are attached to the camera, or as Sergey said, it will be the last photo you take. So don't try to be too brave, and use a remote trigger camera instead. Sometimes with black bears, it can be easier because black bears are less dangerous. This is with the spirit bears. And that's how I got the image like that. Sometimes it's the animals are very skittish, like a project I did on the Saiga antelope. So the Saiga antelope, for those of you who don't know, are critically endangered species. And then the last 30 years, they came from least concerned in the IUCN into critically endangered state by the IUCN. So they are afraid of humans because they were industrially hunted. And of course, they are afraid of humans. So because I don't want to disturb them and I want to get close-up images, again, I'm using the remote trigger on the camera. So I set my camera, I'm preparing for everything, and then I'm waiting in the hide, in a camouflage hide. And then I'm getting photos like that. That way I can get closer without disturbing the animals. So people ask me, how do I approach close enough without disturbing the animals? So first things first. First is respect. Respect the animal and their environment. We are privileged guests in their home. We don't own them. We don't own the environment. If an animal is stressed, two things will happen. First, it wouldn't allow you to get closer. Second, and more importantly, it can attack you. And of course, we don't want anyone to be attacked. And of course, we don't want to disturb the animal. So if you approach an animal and you see that it's stressed, it doesn't want you around. It doesn't want you around. So don't be there. I go back. I fall back. I never approach an animal that doesn't want me there. Because even if you get a photo, even if you get an image, it will be an image of an animal in stress, an animal watching with fear, an animal that is not interested in you being around it, and it shows. Or you get a behind, a butt of an animal, an ass of an animal. You don't want that. It's not interesting. Don't harass animals. Don't harass animals. If it doesn't want you there, it won't be there. Don't chase it. Always approach animals with respect and let them get used to you. Approach them slowly, carefully. Show them that you are not a threat. Don't just march towards them. Wait, wait, wait. Sometimes I wait for 3 days just for them to get acquainted, and then I can get closer. They get used to my smell. They get used to my presence. They see that I'm not a threat, and then I can get closer. But again, don't harass animals. Please, I beg you, don't harass animals. And the second thing is you can use a remote camera, like I did here, because I didn't want to harass the Saiga antelope, which is already critically endangered. I used multiple remote triggered cameras in order not to disturb them, and also set the camera at quiet mode, so the sound of the shutter doesn't disturb the animal. Well, another question that we have here: can you elaborate on the safety and ethics in regards to approaching wildlife with wide-angle lenses? Oh, that's actually, it's a very good. That's what I explain right now. So again, that's the ethics. Just be respectful. Be respectful. Listen to the animals. They will tell you if it's okay to get close or not. I mean, be patient, be respectful, and don't do anything stupid. That's I mean, it's general advice for life, for everything. But in wildlife photography and getting closer to animals, it's more specifically targeted. If you have any more questions on that, I'd be happy to answer, because this is a very crucial, I think, very crucial part of today's talk. Okay, so again, don't. When in doubt, don't. I can tell you that. So before we wrap things up, because we're already running low on time, I want to talk about the photography gear. Okay, because as we said, we all photographers, we all like gear, we all like collecting lenses. So that's the way my bag looks like. So it's a big bag with a lot of gear in it. Just to mention, I'm sponsored by Jitso, the tripod company, Nikon, the camera company, G Technology, which is a brand of Western Digital and SanDisk for hard drive and the SSDs you see here, and DJI, which is the drone company. So it's easy to have so much gear when I own none of it, except for the Bose headphones and the laptop. So yeah, it's not a hero thing, but I'm saying that gear is important, and I'm very thankful for the companies that supporting me on that behalf, on that aspect. So for each and every project, I'm taking the gear that I need for that project. So let's say I'm going to photograph polar bears. I won't take the 85mm f1.4 on that project. Okay, sometimes I take an 800mm f5.6. Sometimes I take the 180 to 400, the new one with the built-in teleconverter. Sometimes I take a 7200 f2.8. So it all depends on the project that I'm using. So I always adjust my gear accordingly, and of course the tripods and everything the same way. I'm also using, today as a photographer, we have to do everything. So we take photos, we take video, we use a drone, I use also an underwater housing. Of course, we need to back up the photos, back up to SSDs, and have everything around. So it's today we are a whole production team in one person. So that's asking a lot of a photographer, and that's also why you need to invest in yourself, in the photographer part of you, to become the best photographer, the best production company that you can be. So today, drones are a big part of my photography. It allows me to get new angles that have never been seen before. This is a drone that I flew in Svalbard, in the high Arctic, in 2015. I mean, when drones are still kind of new. And that showed a new angle. I mean, everything looks like Game of Thrones kind of thing. This is in British Columbia. I mean, I love this art that the drone can show you. It's like a yin and yang photo. Or here in Kamchatka, in Eastern Siberia, This is salmon. It's a group of salmon from the air, and you can see that thousands and thousands of them just packing up like a piece of art. And then I thought to myself, man, it would be cool if I had a bear right about here. So I took it. So I have a photo of a bear surrounded by salmon, which is, again, it's amazing to see from the air how it looks like. This image is also an award-winning shot. Orcas with a drone. I mean, the orcas swim so fast, our boat couldn't keep up with them. So the drone is a better way to get wide-angle shots of orcas swimming. So today I'm using the Mavic 2 Pro for that. I wanted to show you a video, but the video doesn't stream as well. So we can send you a link for the videos later because it doesn't show so well on the presentation. So before we wrap things up, because I do have one more project that I want to share with you, but it's a big project and we don't have time for that because our time is running out on this webinar, and I want to leave some time for Q&A. So we're going to talk about this project, and I'm talking about the polar bear project, in our next webinar that we'll do with NANPA. And then I'm going to talk about how to go out and be in the extreme environment and getting those shots of the polar bears. So now I want to leave some time, around 15 minutes until 7:30 Eastern time, to answer some Q&A, and I bet you have a few. And again, we're going to leave that final part for another webinar on the extreme environment and how to survive that. So before we answer some questions, I want to say that we're going to send you links to the videos that I wanted to show you, and we couldn't because of the stream with the lag. So we're going to send you links to the videos. You're welcome to see some more images on Instagram and on Facebook on my website. And if you want to join any of the workshops that I'm guiding, also feel free to contact me. So now, Teresa, let's go through the Q&A that I see that you have sent me a bunch. Any suggestions for traveling with gear, especially long telephoto lenses in terms of airports and carrying in the field? Oh, that is so important, because if you can't get your gear to the field, that's a big thing. I'm flying on Sunday on a project to photograph a project in Brazil, in the Pantanal area. So I'm dealing with these logistics right now. So I mean, most airlines limit your carry-on weight for 8 kilograms, which is I don't know, 15 pounds, 16 pounds. And of course, our photography gear weighs more than that. So whatever I can send in my luggage, I send in my luggage. So tripods, tripod heads, things that won't break so easily. I even send my drone in my suitcase, in my bag, in the duffel bag that I send in the luggage. So 8 kilograms is the maximum you can carry on. But still, my bag, I have it right here, my bag weighs around 20 kilograms, 25 kilograms. So I always say that the best way to solve a problem is not getting into that in the first place. So don't weigh your bag. That's what I usually do. I mean, it might sound stupid, but that's what I usually do. I just don't weigh my bag. So I just put it in the side behind the bench, or I have a friend or someone I'm guiding at the workshops look after my bag. I go and do the check-in, and then I take it on board. If in any case they insist on weighing the bag, which happens from time to time, I weigh it shows 20, 25 grams or whatever, and then I tell them that according to regular airline regulations, when weighing carry-on, you don't get weigh photography gear and laptops. Sometimes it works and they're convinced, and sometimes it doesn't. The only problem is that I made it up. I made it up, but if you say it with confidence and assertiveness, it works. So that's what I usually try to do. If they insist that they don't know these regulations, which makes sense, I can take the heaviest gear that I have, put it on me or in my pocket. I always have a plastic bag in my bag, a duty-free bag. I put some stuff in it. They never weigh bags, plastic bags. So then I make the bag weigh 8 kilograms. And after we've done with the check-in, I put everything back in and go on the plane. I mean, it's never been a problem so far. I'm traveling a lot, and so far it went fine. So that's my advice. Don't put optics in your luggage. Yeah. Other questions? Are there any other questions, Teresa?
Yes, we do have a couple of other questions. One, before we leave the gear topic, Lauren asked, do you know of anything narrow for safari vehicle video? I'd love to find a monopod with a secure base.
So for safari vehicles in Tanzania, if we're talking about that, most of them have rails on the roof, and you can buy a clamp. There is a clamp you can buy, and then you can attach a tripod head to the clamp. Another option, which I prefer, I don't like the clamps because then it means you're shooting from too high, and you want to shoot from a low angle and not high from the roof. So I prefer a tripod in the vehicle. So what I do when I'm guiding safaris in Tanzania and other places in Africa, we take the longer vehicles, and then we remove some of the seats. So then you have space inside the vehicle to place a tripod inside, not a monopod. Because monopod, although it's nice, it's not the most stable solution for video mostly. So in order to get a clear shot, you want to use a proper tripod, and with the seats removed, and you are 2 or 3 people in the vehicle of 8 people, then you can place a tripod conveniently inside the vehicle and get those stable shots. Other solution is just using a beanbag. A beanbag, for those of you who don't know, it's just a bag. It's made of fabric or something, and you just fill it with beans. You put it on the window. A lot of safari vehicles have them already prepared for photographers. And you just lean your camera on the beanbag and you photograph with that. So that's another excellent solution, not for video but for stills. Yeah.
Good suggestions. A couple of other questions, more in general. One is, how do you recommend getting started in conservation photography, particularly partnering with conservation organizations?
So, I mean, the best thing is approach them. I mean, they all have emails. All of them are looking for volunteers. I mean, I can tell you that everyone's looking for volunteers. Everyone's looking for good images. You can find your cause, whatever that cause may be, and you can find 10 or 20 organizations or foundations or NGOs working in that field. So just Google. Google, email them, contact us. Hi, I'm a photographer. I'd love to help out. Here are my images. I'll be happy to volunteer and do assignments for you or whatever. I mean, I encourage everyone to volunteer. I volunteer. I encourage everyone. I hope you do. We always look for good people.
I think you've answered this question, but I'll throw it out there just in case there's other tips. Someone asks tips or suggestions for getting our work noticed, acquiring sponsors, and getting published.
Getting our work published, that's the question? Sorry, I didn't hear you.
Sorry, tips for getting work noticed, acquiring sponsors, and getting published.
Well, that's the biggest question, I think. It's not easy. I wish I had an easy answer, but I think that the first thing that I mean everybody wants is good photography. So good photography is a big part of that. So if you have a excellent photography, excellent photographs, excellent projects, or whatever, you can get those images noticed. You can get them on magazines. You can contact editors. You can contact Facebook pages or Instagram pages or NANPA or whatever. You can participate in the NANPA competition, and you can get your work noticed. Or photography contests as well. Participate in photography contests. You can get noticed, and you can win. So that's first. The other thing, if you want to get sponsors, I mean, it's a big question, but it's not just about the photography part, but sponsorships comes from also the influence part. So in order to get the better sponsorships, you got to make yourself an influencer. Because if you are an influencer, then people would like to support you. I mean, the sponsors just don't come for anything or for anyone, and it takes a long time to get noticed and to be at that specific level and get that unique product, the unique images, unique visuals, and unique story, unique voice for sponsors to notice you and want to support you. And I encourage you to publish and share and be out there as much as you can and build your brand as a photographer, and then you can reap the fruits from that. Yeah. I wish I had an easier answer, but it's not easy.
A lot of hard work.
Yeah, it is a lot of hard work. I mean, it took me over 10 years, okay, to get to that level. And it's again, it's always breaching your limits. It's always getting to that next level. It's always pushing forward. It's never giving up. It's setting impossible goals and then getting them. Yeah, so it's not easy. Don't think it's easy. It wasn't easy for me. It sure wasn't. Yeah.
We have another question. This one's more about after the photo shoot. So how long do you wait after a photo session to start to cull and process your images? If applicable, do you find waiting helps you be more objective when selecting favorite images?
Well, that's again, it's a very good question. So when I'm in the field, because I'm very busy on a day-to-day basis, so I don't have time every day to work on my images. I have the photo travel company and the photography school. I'm doing talks. I'm doing a lot. And I have 4 kids, so I don't have time. So whenever I'm in the field, when I'm downloading the photo, exactly the moment when I'm downloading the photo, every single day, I go through them and I eliminate the ones that I never use. So downloading the photos, and then my workflow is I delete all the unusable ones or the ones that I will never use. Or if I have 10 or 100 of the same thing, I just keep 1 or 2 and delete the others. So out of, I guess I delete more than 60–70% of my photos after I took them, because it's easier to delete a photo than take a photo that you missed out because you didn't shoot it. The same thing like cropping. So at the end of the project, I remained with less than 1,000 photos in general. And while I'm erasing, I'm also starting to catalog them. So I'm starting to prioritize which I like better, which I like less. So I'm doing that as I go along. After a year, and then also I start editing. I start publishing photos, posting photos while I'm on the project. And then after I'm a year or 2 years, sometimes I go back to the folder and I have a look at the photos that I didn't flag or I didn't label to edit. And then sometimes I find hidden gems. Sometimes this postponing, this detachment from the creating experience helps me to judge the photos, estimate the photos in a more objective way, detaching myself from the creative process of the hard work that I did to get it, of the experience of getting it. But but most of my images are decided on the spot because I know on the spot which ones I like better and which ones I like less. Yeah.
Kind of a follow-up to that, do you edit in camera or with Lightroom or another program?
I never edit on camera because the screen is too small and it's not accurate enough. I mean, I might edit a sample as an example or whatever, just to send to the editors or whatever if I have something insane. But I edit on my laptop. I carry my laptop with me wherever I go. So I have my office on me all the time. I edit in Lightroom is where I develop the raw file, and then I use Photoshop to fine-tune the image, do some moderate dodge and burn on Photoshop, but I use Lightroom for practically everything else, which is white balance, exposure, highlights, shadows, and so on and so on. Yeah, so that's my basic process. Because I can't disregard the ethics of editing in photojournalism, then I'm very limited with the amount of Photoshop that I can do. So it's a very basic process.
That is the last of our questions. And I want to thank you, Roie, for presenting today for us. I jotted down some of the adjectives that people use to describe your images: incredible, wonderful, beautiful, amazing, great imaging, or great photos, and interesting information. So everyone, I think, thoroughly enjoyed the presentation and especially your images. And NANPA thanks you for presenting for us.
Thank you so much. Thank you for having me. Thank you for everyone for listening. We have a lot of people here online. Thank you, NANPA. Thank you, Teresa. I'd love to do a follow-up with the last part of the presentation if you're interested, of course. And you're welcome to stay in touch. So thank you.
Great. Thank you, and we'll be in touch. Good night, everyone.
Bye-bye. Good night.